April 7, 2026. A ticking clock was the only sound heard in capitals across the globe, counting down to an 8 p.m. Eastern deadline. President Donald Trump had issued an ultimatum to obliterate Iran's bridges and power plants, warning that a whole civilization will die tonight if Tehran failed to capitulate. Global energy markets reacted instantly to the threat. Gas prices on the U.S. West Coast spiked toward $8 a gallon as the conflict threatened to sever global supply lines. In Iran, thousands of civilians gathered to form national infrastructure, hoping their presence would deter the promised wave of strikes. Then, with only 2 hours remaining, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif brokered a sudden 2-week ceasefire. The news sent the Dow jumping 900 points. This ceasefire buys a narrow 14-day window, a period where the globe balances between a diplomatic resolution and a total military escalation. The pause follows 38 days of Operation Epic Fury, a campaign defined by massive U.S. drone swarms and high-risk operations to rescue downed American airmen. Strategic sites like Karg Island took the brunt of the offensive, with satellite imagery confirming the destruction of industrial hubs used to sustain the Iranian war effort. Iran maintained its primary leverage, a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Shutting this corridor blocked 1/5 of global daily oil. Tehran reinforced this with threats of asymmetric strikes against Saudi and UAE energy grids, raising the cost of American victory. Inside Tehran, the regime faced its own crisis, with intelligence reports indicating the newly appointed supreme leader was hospitalized and unable to lead. Operation Epic Fury proved that the U.S. could hit strategic targets at will, but these tactical successes were not enough to break Iran's asymmetric economic stranglehold. Mediators in Islamabad are now attempting to bridge the gap between two sets of demands that appear completely irreconcilable. Iran's 10-point plan requires full lifting of sanctions and continued control over the strait. Most contentiously, they insist on the right to keep enriching uranium. Recent assessments show that Tehran has already accumulated enough 60% enriched uranium for multiple nuclear weapons, with a breakout time now measured in days. This makes the U.S. and Israeli red lines absolute: complete dismantling of the nuclear program, the reopening of the strait, and an end to proxy terrorism. Diplomacy remains stalled because neither side can abandon these core positions without sacrificing their ultimate strategic leverage. The clock is still running. The ceasefire is only a temporary pause, and the threat of total destruction remains armed. International pressure is mounting against the U.S. doctrine. The United Nations and the Vatican have both warned that targeting civilian power grids and bridges would constitute a war crime. Meanwhile, Israel has cautioned Washington against accepting any agreement that leaves the clerical regime's nuclear infrastructure standing. Regional proxies are also waiting in the wings. Houthi forces in the Red Sea have already threatened to open a second maritime front if the ceasefire collapses. Vice President J.D. Vance has stated that the end of this countdown leads to one of two final pathways for the region. The first path sees Iran normalize, the strait reopen, and the Middle East enter a period of renewed economic growth. The second path is the collapse of negotiations, followed by the promised demolition of Iran's infrastructure and the massive regional retaliation that would follow. When the 14-day countdown hits zero, the geopolitical landscape will be irrevocably altered, leaving the world at the mercy of the ticking clock.